My sister worked for Bronx Frontier in the 80s. And so she did a nutrition program called the Chuck Wagon. And I grew up in Long Island, but some days when I didn't have school, she would bring me to work with her. And so I had been coming to this area, to the South Bronx, since the early 80s, early to mid 80s. And that's where I first met Paul Lipson. I first met Ralphie Acevedo and Leighton Winter and a couple of other old Hunts Point characters. Paul at that time had run the South Bronx Summer Project. And what that project did was it converted a vacant lot over on Bryan Avenue. And it turned that into a community garden, as well as you ran a play street. And we hired SYP workers, right? So we had youth involved, we had teenage youth involved, but then we also ran a play street for the younger kids. And so never went back. That's where we met Sippy, we met Gerald and his family, Mildred Louise and Stephen Sapp. We knew we wanted to stay in Hunts Point. We knew we liked working with young people. We liked the area, and we kind of started talking about, you know, what could we do that's different, that nobody else is doing in this area, and still remain here. And so we started fleshing out the concepts of the Point. Steve and Mildred were artists. You know, Mildred was a dancer. She's a singer. Steve is a poet and a playwright. About that time, you know, New Eureka Poets Cafe was kind of, you know, on the up. We used to go there and you know, to see the slams and things like that. And we said, you know, with the young people and all the talent that we saw in Hunts Point and in the young people that we worked with, we thought this could be something that we could do that would be of benefit. The arts, culture, all the kids that we worked with, you know, they were artists. You know, they just didn't see themselves that way. Whether they were DJing a party on Saturday night to make a little extra cash, or they, you know, they did graffiti and they had, you know, these artistic talents, to the popular 90s dream of I just want to be a rapper. You know, you're a poet. If you're a rapper, you're a poet. You can write all those songs, those lyrics. So we wanted to like create a space where they could continue that, and they could continue their art and also, you know, keep it, as opposed to what happened in the 90s with hip hop, and, you know, where it was being created here in the South Bronx, but it got, you know, taken away by so many other groups and, you know, advertisement agencies and things like that. So we wanted a place where people could come and do that and keep their art and keep it, you know, control the images of where they come from. All of this happening in the backdrop of Hunts Point changing, right? From when I first started coming with my sister to, you know, all the housing stock being rebuilt, to people, you know, being moved into that housing stock, to groups like SEPCO, Banana Kelly, Seneca Center that helped provide them with the social services that they needed, kind of the groundwork, right? You've got an apartment, you've got it, you know, you're getting the help you need to get a job or employment or the other social services that you might need in your life. Well, what's the next thing? Was, you know, a place that you can go to within your community to, you know, whether it's see a show or see your kids perform or anything like that. And that's where we kind of felt our niche was.
If we were going to sort of trace the origins of the Point, would have to go to Seneca Center, which was up the street, and where Paul Lipson and Maria Torres and Steve Sapp and Mildred Ruiz all worked, as well as Moses and as well as Carrie, and who was a volunteer.
During that summer, they started the Hunts Point Farm, which is where the buildings on Bryant and Lafayette are. There's a slew of housing there. That was all vacant lots. So the Brown students came in that summer, and that was the summer of, I was pregnant of Desiree. That was the summer of '86. And they farmed all of that.
And this was a space that had been vacant for about 5 years before that. And then first thought was, what are we, crazy? We're going from a non-existent, organization that's now going to have this 12,000 square foot building. How are we going to do that? And then we really blew out the ideas of the point. We said, well, instead of the theater being in the basement, this could be your theater space. Then we came up with the concept of a business incubator and economic development in the neighborhood. And then, well, there could be a dance studio space for Mildred to do programming and along the lines of dance. And, we really stretched it out. We had worked in the community for X amount of years, loved it. And that was one of our first questions we asked, was like, what is it we want to do? Is it something that stays in Hunts Point, or is it something, do we need to find another place to do it? And all four of us agreed we wanted to stay here in Hunts Point and to continue working with the young people that we worked with. But Seneca Center was a settlement house. That was their lane and things like that. Banana Kelly was at that time, they were housing, they were tenant rights, they were rebuilding all the housing. Sebco was in that vein as well, as doing social service work. But none of them really, at that point in time, were working with youth or arts in that way. There were no arts groups in Hunts Point at that time. At least in the peninsula. You had the Longwood Arts Gallery, and you had some other groups that kind of did little things. But this is going to be an organization where we wanted to really kind of put that in a higher level. And, as a cultural institutions in this place, to honor the ones that were here before and to continue that legacy.
The Point was an abandoned bagel mash factory. And so we took over the building, and the only thing left really were we'd find occasionally these sort of petrified bagels, and that was the beginning of the Point, and that was in 93, 94. It was very much a community neighborhood project. Everyone who was working on it was helping with the people from up the street, Tony, all sorts of different, and our security was a German Shepherd named Rudy, and he was in charge of when at night, in terms of when we would lock. And then through the largesse of the Kaplan Foundation, the Jan Kaplan Foundation, which has always been a very good friend and supporter to us, and the artist Roy Lichtenstein, who Carrie knew, that's how we got the original seed money to take over the compound here.
It had been abandoned for 5 years before we came into it. So one of the things that we did with Max Blauner and in meeting with him, and I remember we were going back and forth on, the lease and how we, what we could pay, what we couldn't pay, and things like that. And we were talking about the roof, and we said, listen, it's going to need a whole new roof. You got to put a new roof on it, and I'll give you the building for free, rent free for 1 year. Get everything you got to get done with it, and then the lease will kick in. And then you can, start paying rent. So we said, all right, we have to do all of our renovations. We pay ourselves, and we have to get this building ready before, we have to pay rent. And on top of that, we were fortunate enough also to meet Joan Byron and Pratt, and they pro bono designed the space for us. And so what you see now is Joan's design, along with I believe the architect is Robert Zagaroli. What we did then in return was spent a year as general contractors for the Point. So at the same time, we did a lot of the construction along with Tony Sola, who's he lives on the block. Paul would put on the big rubber gloves and attach like a generator to, like he would clip it on, and then that's how we had power to do all of these windows. $10,000. And you're like, well, we don't have $10,000. Okay, right? You clean everything out, brush everything, and I'll pop in this glass. $1,500. I say, all right. We were able to do the $500,000 worth of work. for probably like $100,000 is what it came out to in the end. You know, we were able to get Unitas in before the year was up, so that this year they were paying rent, and we got their lease, and we got all those things. We were able to get ourselves up and running probably by January by January, February '96. So in doing the construction for this building, and really just opening this space up, it piqued a lot of people's curiosity, especially from this block, right? Because if it weren't for people from the block, like Tony Sola lives on the block, he did a lot of our drywall and our tiling and things like that. Jose Ortiz, who's the gate guy, he helped put up our gates and secure our building and things like that. Joe Palermo was another guy who did welding and things like that. Little Johnny from across the street did our, cement stuff. And then all the little kids who were little kids at that point, but are grown men now, came in and wanted to sweep up and help out and, do little things like that. And so while we were doing construction with them, we also threw in what would you think about a drumming class? And, we would kind of interject little things like that, or what would you want to see here and do here? And the block, they wanted us to roast a pig. Well, we went out, we got a pig, and we did an all-day pig roast with, Nestor and other folks, from the block. So it felt like, forever, but that's how it works. I mean, it's I don't think it ever really happens overnight,
Example, I used to say that I work all year long just to be able to go to camp in the summer, and it was hard work. It was nothing easy about it because there's a lot of coordinating to do, lives you're responsible for, but it was just an amazing experience to be able to take 60 or 70 kids out of Hunts Point, for free, and give them the Point experience, because everything that happened at the Point would happen in the woods. We had art, we had music, we had drama, we had fitness, and we fed them. We had campfires, we had ghost stories, we had hiking, we had swimming. It was a hard work, but I looked forward to it every year. And people entrusted us because, Latinos and, and folks from the neighborhood, they would not readily send their kids away, And in today's climate, I don't know, how easy that is to do, but they would entrust us to take their kids, to the country, away for 10 days and bring them back safe and sound. And happily I can say that we did. We brought them all back.
If people could come in and participate in our theater or in certain parts of our programming, it would help. It would be good for everyone. It would create revenue. They would see how talented and what type of programming or music program. Angel Rodriguez with his Latin jazz, all of these things. Tats Crew with their murals. All of this, as Steve and Mildred and everyone with the live from the Edge Theater. If you produce quality programming, things will work out.
We had drama, we had music. My kids learned how to play the guitar and bass. A really strong dance program. So any type of dance, we had African dance. I never did ballet, but
another thing in the background of when we started the Point. We're trying to start a theater program at the same time. Pregones Theater in another part of the Bronx is getting kicked out of their building, and they needed a place to store their equipment. So we met with them, and what better thing than, hey, we'll store your equipment, and can we just use a couple of lights and a grid and this, and built our theater based on that. So that's a crazy coincidence that's happening. We helped Pregones. We're storing their things, kept it in good keeping while they got another space, and then we were able to do a theater for nothing. Little things like that came together. Really fortunate.
I came to the Point originally in 2002 to the International Center of Photography at the POINT program to learn black and white darkroom photography.
Growing up in this community, in this neighborhood, you know, we wanted to be able, I mean, I was one of the teenagers that was walking down Hunts Point Avenue. I wanted to feel safe. I remember there was a time when I would not walk down Hunts Point Avenue. I would walk down this 800 block from Barretto Street. We would get off on Simpson Street, we would cross over the Bruckner, and then we would shoot down Oneida Street because it was a residential block. And on Hunts Point, it was just too seedy. It was just too shady. And, you know, from getting catcalled to getting propositioned to getting mugged, you know. So we would just like hightail it down Oneida Street. And it shouldn't be like that for anybody. You know, people should feel safe walking in their neighborhood, period. You know, it doesn't matter where you live. You should be able to feel safe where you live.
Really interesting land use wise in that, you know, we have the food distribution center here. It's this huge 60-acre distribution center, the largest in the country, and it's completely truck-based. So it depends on diesel truck that come in and out to both deliver and to then pick up for redistribution, food, produce, seafood, meat, which serves restaurants, grocery stores, bodegas, you know, just any food places throughout the Northeast. It's not even just regional to New York City. 15 to 20 thousand diesel trucks that come in and out of the community on a daily basis. So we're talking about a really high volume of trucks. In addition to that, the food distribution center, particularly the produce market, relies on diesel-powered refrigeration units in the parking lots of the food distribution center to store produce, to keep it chilled while they're distributing. So we have constant just diesel fuel that's just burning in the neighborhood that's next to the food distribution center. We have all of this industry, and it's both like heavy industry manufacturing. It could be like, you know, auto shops or auto recycling places. We have 13 waste transfer stations here. We have a wastewater treatment facility here. We have a prison barge that's like right up on our waterfront. That's like spillover from Rikers. So basically any unwanted land use is like here in the neighborhood, sort of right next to the food distribution center. And then sort of weaved in that is just 800 food-related businesses. So you can go to, we have the power locally to envision what the community looks like and sort of work to advance that. For a long time and historically, right, we've been engaged in various planning processes. There's been 20 of them that have been done on behalf of this community. They have not always resulted in implementation. We are moving away from that and just acknowledging that we have the power to build the community that we want to build. And that's really borrowing from the legacy of the Point, which is how do we own land? How do we create a community center that we want to see? And how do we build the resources within that center that the community wants? So it's that same concept, right? But now we're applying that to infrastructure. You know, as members of NESHA, the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance, we were part of a mapping project called the Waterfront Justice Project in New York City called Significant Maritime Industrial Areas. They are areas that are zoned for heavy industry on the waterfront. There's 6 of them throughout New York City. They are largely concentrated in communities of color. They all have a high volume of toxic substances. So substances that are on like DEC's registry, right, for like bulk storage facilities, places like, you know, brownfields, places that might store oils, other toxic substances that are also just on EPA's radar, right? So we took all of these different businesses that are operating these, you know, that are either in operation with these like materials that could potentially be toxic or that are on this registry, right? And so NESHA mapped those within the significant maritime industrial area, and what they found is that, again, they're all in close proximity to these vulnerable communities, and in addition to that, they're all in flood zones. 13 waste transfer stations here. We have the second highest volume of waste transfer stations, of private waste transfer stations in New York City. And those aren't equally distributed. They're largely concentrated in low-income communities of color. And so we have a lot of issues related to air quality, also other respiratory illnesses. We have a high volume of people that suffer from like heart disease, from diabetes, obesity. There's a lot of public health issues. So we created something called the South Bronx Community Resiliency Agenda. And the idea is that we hold the city accountable to this vision that we put forward through Hunts Point Lifelines. So now we have this whole slew of resiliency projects that sort of live within that umbrella of the South Bronx Community Resiliency Agenda. Free Hunts Point Community Wi-Fi is our free Wi-Fi network. In its everyday utility, it's designed to give free Wi-Fi to people, right? And to sort of bridge that techno power goes down, if the Wi-Fi goes down, it's still a resilient communication network.
And in a PNK scenario like we're using, we use this as a server to store configuration files for the router, as well as other offline applications that can be accessed through the AP. So in a Raspberry Pi, there are multiple ports. These are USB ports that work normally with any like flash drive. This is a Ethernet port that we use to connect to our access.
So we have the server, we have the router, and we have the access point. And that's the portable network CAT. And what that is a local-based community Wi-Fi network program that is free for 2 years, thanks to the federal and local government. In event of emergency or non-emergency, you would have free internet coverage as well as a multimedia presence on the World Wide Web. We are offering this to local Hunt Point businesses here for the community. As I said, as a storm like Sandy or a major flood was to happen here on the peninsula of Hunts Point, with this portable network kit, you would have access during that emergency to information that might be life-saving for you and your family. We are offering the service, as I said, for free. We are the Hunts Point Wi-Fi digital program, and it's free, and you should definitely get involved with this.
One of our earliest campaigns was supporting another organization called Mothers on the Move as they pursued a lawsuit against a former sludge processing facility that was in the neighborhood. So that's sort of how that environmental justice movement really sparked here. And then historically, we are also members of the Southern Bronx River Watershed Alliance to address issues related to the Sheridan-Bruckner interchange, the highway network here, and then also to decommission the Sheridan Expressway. So we've been proud members of that alliance for a very long time. That work collectively, not only to try to decommission the Sheridan, but to also develop a community vision and to sort of align any planning process that happens from, we're working with one industrial building in Hunts Point. We can build up to a 4 megawatt system. If that's built, that would be the largest community-owned solar project in New York State. And it has the potential to power up to 1,400 households on the peninsula. That would result in
great things that happened with us and all those groups are, there's 3 great waterfront parks in Hunts Point that are some of the most beautiful parks in the city. And we're still working with a lot of those groups in the city to make sure that people get to those parks safely because they are in the industrial zone. So those are real victories that will live on beyond us, right?
There's a lot of opportunities with a just transition if you're really looking at ways to secure your community, and resiliency is not just about being prepared for an emergency and climate change. It's really about those steps that you can actually start to take to make a different world. And there's a lot of different employment opportunities, and there's a lot of different ownership opportunities and sustainability opportunities, which I think are very important for the next 25 years. And how do we, a community that's very rich in culture and very rich in assets, and people have a lot of problem-solving skills. How do they own this infrastructure? How do they own their community properly? How do they own those same things that are killing them, like energy? And how do they own, communication tools? How do they own, their culture?
Hi, my name is Pat Watson. This is my food pantry, Pat's Outreach Ministry. I've been doing this for 5 years, since 2014. I received this vision one day as I was driving, so I ran with the vision. I started this out of the trunk of my car. I started with maybe 10 or 15 people. Then Maria, she invited me to come inside the point and to do it here. So my hope for the future is to receive government funding. Everything is done out of pocket. I receive no government funding, federal or state funding. I do it from the love of my heart. This is something that God chose me to do, and my job is to serve. I do not ask for ID. I don't care if you have a job. We all have wants and needs in life, and I'm nervous right now. My hope for the future is to receive government funding and get toys donated to go to the hospital and give to sick kids. The benefit is healthy eating. I've had people come up to me and tell me that they no longer have high blood pressure. They no longer take medication for high blood pressure or diabetes. So that's my. I remember when the point first opened, I met Paul Lipson. I was on the corner grilling food, and he followed the smell. He asked me if I would like to come inside and run a restaurant. I didn't accept his offer at first, but later on I did. So I used to run the restaurant inside, and it was called Pat's Kitchen Real Soul Food.
Having me in the neighborhood is a good thing for the kids and for the community. Today we did some mini quiches. We did a mushroom and phyllo dough, and we did a mushroom and Swiss, and we did spinach and cheddar. We also made some mini crab cakes with a lemon pepper aioli and meatball with a tomato francassee. We also made a chicken pot pie for you guys also, homemade chicken pot pie. Well, I come from the Caribbean. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so I specialize in curry. We do curry, we do also on the West Indies, so we do jerk, a lot of stews. So I can bring what I learned from classical culinary training, French, Italian, and use my training at home, which is Caribbean food. So I can bring that niche. It's also a Spanish community also, so they have a lot of Spanish speaking here. I also can cook some Spanish food also. And we do a program in October. It's a no beef program. Kids coming together to have non-violence. And we also prepare a meal to feed the community, about 60 people. It starts October 11th and it runs straight through June. Please eat everything, but be moderation. Don't eat McDonald's every day. But you can have McDonald's twice a month, that would be good, but moderate everything you eat.
Where it could go wrong is a lot different than where it went wrong in the 80s, you know. I think now for us, where it could go wrong is, gentrification. It's gonna, people are gonna get booted out of this neighborhood, and I'm gonna have a Starbucks around the corner, and there's gonna be a high rise, up the block, things like that.
I don't think people can live healthy lives with so much toxic pollution. There's more trucks gonna come into the area now with this whole Amazon thing. We were talking about it this morning. You can barely get out of here at 5 o'clock now if you're driving. Even walking, you have to be careful you're not gonna get run over. I just hope that the people that have lived here for the past 50 years can still live here, or their children can still live here 50 years from now.
But it's basically is that we want the people who were here for the hard times to be here for the better times, and that's of paramount importance in terms.
Our legacy is the young people that are still connected. The young people who will say, I learned that at the point, and who want to come back and carry that message forward. Older people, younger people, sharing that message and organizing.
an action, a member of our team program, be part of the team program, go to college and like Sharon, and then come back and lead action, and then go off and become the head of a department. So, and all of these things are again, it's one of the best.
It was with the arts. It was with, the entrepreneurial aspect, teaching people how to be independent, how they can, create a small business for themselves to sustain themselves. Sustainability was always part of the root of everything. And also, the creativity that's in each person, each one of us. I think the Point was able to bring that out. So if someone had a doubt about their creativity, or a doubt about, if they were on the right track to something, they had a place to explore all of that. And
the original idea, which I've always say to people, which I think is the nicest thing about the Point, is that it truly believes in axon that its neighborhood residents are its greatest asset, and we're a platform for their skills and talents. And I think that that's manifested itself from the very beginning and continued through now to up to our 25th anniversary.
Never changes about the Point.
I think the one thing that should never change about the Point is that any and everybody should be able to be welcome at the Point, I didn't have a space I could just walk into that wasn't my home, that feels like my home. And the Point serves that for a lot of people. So I would love the Point just be as open as possible and people to be able to come in and enjoy the services and enjoy each other and work together. I mean, that's all you can ask for a place like the Point ultimately, Work, and because the work is being done in a way that's not just in one area, you have a lot more opportunities to do more with the community. So when you think about cultural work, when you think about youth development work, when you think about resiliency work and environmental justice work, there's a lot more opportunities in there for people than just come to do a specific program or just come in and do one thing. When you can really get involved with a lot of different things, again, that from one thing to the next might lead you to a career, might lead you into being an activist, might lead you into being educated, or even just raising your children properly. There's no, we're going to continue to be a model for what you can do in communities that supposedly can't do anything. We do for ourselves, and we people really, again, they're trying to make something. They're not waiting for a handout. They're not waiting for the sky to change so that they can decide that they're going to do something. People really make things happen here with their hands and their feet, and with their minds and their intellect.